Hey everybody, Kenny Wisdom here today, bringing you another Trainer Tip Tuesday. Today we're going to be talking about resource management. This was suggested by PokePaxin Plays, so big thing on YouTube. So big thanks to them for the suggestion. And keep in mind we are going to talk about deck selection. I know there are a lot of you that wanted to talk about deck selection, how to pick a deck for nationals, etc. And I figured I would do that next Tuesday, so it can just be the closest nationals as possible and kind of have a national themed episode. Additionally, I wanted to do a Q&A on that episode about nationals. So just let me know, write in the comments on here, tweet me or whatever. I'll definitely try and include a bit of that. So resource management is a big one. Lysander's trump card is banned. You need to think about your resources more, and this is kind of a topic that's maybe too big for a Trainer Tip Tuesday, but I want to at least kind of touch on it. And I think the biggest way to understand resource management is to understand card advantage. Now, their card advantage is the idea that your cards are more effective or more effectively handling your opponent's cards. So, for instance, the most common form of card advantage in Pokemon can come from the prize trade. So if you attack with a Raichu XY and knock out an Yveltal EX, you're taking two prizes. If your opponent then promotes a Darkrai and knocks out your Raichu, that's fine. You took two prizes for one. Obviously, it doesn't just come down to that. There are other factors in play. You have to consider your hand and all that, but that is kind of a perfect example of card advantage, which is you are getting more value out of your cards. Additionally, one energy attackers are big for that. If you can knock out your opponent's Pokemon with two DCEs on it with a basic with an energy on it or something, that's pretty big. And that all kind of just falls in line. Once you understand how to effectively and efficiently provide card advantage for yourself, you can understand resource management. Now, the main way that I think resource management is dealt with right now is in stadiums and energy. So I'm going to focus on those. For stadiums, you definitely need to have an understanding of what your opponent can have. So you need to have an understanding that, hey, most Seismitoad decks run 2 or 3 Verbank, or, most of the Night March decks are running 3 to 4 Dimension Valley. You need to have an understanding, and hopefully you can actually get exact numbers. I know that um, once metagames kind of settle a bit, you can usually determine exactly how many of a stadium people are running. So that's going to be really huge for you, because if you can say, okay, I have a Verbank in my hand but no laser, I'm going to wait until they play a Skyfield and then bounce the Skyfield. Uh, Even the Skyfield in particular is a great one because they often have to discard Pokemon, which again with Lysander's trump card being banned actually does matter. So that's an even better play. But just in general, if you can find a way to manipulate stadium plays so that your stadium will come out on top. So let's say that you each have two stadiums. They play one, you play yours. They play their last one, and then you can then play your last one. That's not to say that you should always do that. There are times when you want to play a stadium, and in the case of Verbank Stadium, sometimes it's just important to stack that damage up. So you want to play it, slam your laser, etc. But times when you might not have a laser, or times where you do have a laser, but the damage math might not matter versus a deck that's heavily reliant on their stadium, like Night March or like a Rayquaza deck running Skyfield, really important to hold those stadiums. Additionally, um, being able to tell uh, being able to make your opponent have a stadium is big too. So if there are times where your opponent maybe doesn't run a whole lot of stadiums, but maybe relies on it for one specific purpose, you sometimes want to actually play your Verbank out and say, hey, you need to waste your trainer's mail, or you need to waste your computer search or your Skylar, whatever, I'm finding the stadium to bump mine out. So those are the main ways that I find card advantage via stadiums being really important. Kind of common knowledge, but it can definitely be um, a struggle for players, especially if you've only been playing since Lysander's trump card is introduced. You really have to be careful with what you're playing now, and you really have to be sure that you are making the right decision and not just playing out your entire hand. And as far as energy goes, energy is similar to the stadiums, except for it's a little bit more complex, I think. Obviously, if a perfect example is if you have let's say you have a DCE and a water, you say you have DCE and two water in your hand, and you're playing Seismitoad, and you think your opponent might have enhanced hammers, and you're going first, you should almost always touch that water. Obviously, you have the chance of your DCE getting end out of your hand, but in general, you don't want to offer up that DCE just to be enhanced hammered by your opponent. You would rather attach the water and then next turn hopefully find another water so you can conserve your DCEs as much as possible. And that also sets you up to be able, in that specific example, it sets you up to be able to go water, DCE, water, and hit with Seismitoad, and really just take over the game from there. Typically, you will also find that, like I said in the beginning of the show, you want to be able to make sure that what you're doing with your energy is more efficient than what your opponent is doing. And this can be via having low energy attackers or having some form of acceleration. For instance, if you have Bronzong, then you want to have attackers. Bronzong encourages you to have attackers that take a lot of energy because your energy drops aren't the same. Your opponent can only attach one per turn, where you can attach up to four per turn. And but most decks can't do that. So you really need to be careful about being sure that either you have a way to attack efficiently or that you have a way to accelerate efficiently. So something that comes up a lot in when you're playing Yveltal, for instance, is because of Yvelball that encourages you to attach a lot of energy, and Y-Cyclone that lets you kind of move your energy around. You want to be very careful about opening up your Yveltal to potentially being knocked out, because if your Yveltal with a DCE gets knocked out, that's way better than your Yveltal with a DCE or 2 DCE and 2 Dark, let's say. And obviously, sometimes you need to attack with your Yveltal with 2 DCE and 2 Dark, because sometimes you need to come out swinging and do a lot of damage with Yvelball, but usually you can kind of make a more conservative effort. Additionally, Mewtwo EX was a big part of this. Mewtwo EX's play has gone down quite a bit since it was first released, but that's why Mewtwo was so good, was because you could say for a DCE, I am either going to knock out anything or at least punish the players who are attaching a lot of energy. So, oh wow, you set up your big Cobalion or whatever, well, Mewtwo's going to hit you for a bunch of energy. If you overcommitted to a Mewtwo and you put 3 energy or 4 energy on a Mewtwo, my Mewtwo is going to come back and knock you out very easily. So that's kind of a way that you can conserve resources there. And then I think the last part that I didn't mention at the beginning is supporters. So with Lysander's trump card, of course, there's all these supporter tricks you can do. You can VS Seeker for your trump card back. You can dump a bunch of swords in the discard pile to reverse Seeker back later. A lot of tricks you can do, but in general, I find that conserving supporters, even in the world of Versus Seeker, is very important. I would much rather, if I have a Juniper and a Colress in my hand, and I can only Colress for 6, I'd much rather do that than to throw away the Colress off the Juniper. Similar plays happen with N. If you have, let's say, you can N for 5, or Juniper discarding, obviously the Juniper and 2 more Ns. Usually you want to N, and I think that, although it is a decision, I think that you really want to be careful about what you're doing, because there are times where you say, you know what, I need to dig for that whatever card, that laser, that DCE or whatever. So I'm going to Juniper, discarding all this. Don't worry about it because it'll help me win the game. But resource management is all about managing those things. It's all about making sure that you can make the right decisions at the right time. Additionally, I would say that the player who errs on the side of being conservative, the player who Colress for 6 rather than Junipering, the player that ends for 5 twice over 2 turns instead of Junipering, overall is going to make the right play a higher percentage of the time. That doesn't mean always, without a doubt. You definitely have to be sure of the decision you're making. However, I think that if you err on that side, if you just say, I'm always going to take the conservative route, you'll be right more often than not. So, I hope that helped you guys. Let me know if there's any follow-up questions you have. I can reply in the comments or make a whole other video. Like I said, this is a huge topic that's really going to help you get better at Pokemon. And like I said, next week we are going to talk about picking a deck for a big tournament and preparing for nationals. So please, because we already have our topic figured out, instead of suggesting a topic in the comments, please let me know what you'd like to hear about. You can ask a specific question. You can ask even me a specific question about a specific example I have at nationals. Anything from what deck to play to where I like to eat to where I like to stay. Just anything like that. It's going to be in all nationals next week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.